And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is the one about Donald Trump. Thank you for listening. Hello, Cleo.
Hello, Richard.
How are you?
I'm all right, yeah. I'm keen to talk about this.
Me too. What have you been reading?
Yeah, well, this week we've been reading the book by Trump's niece. What's her name?
Mary.
Mary Trump. About her famous uncle, Trump. If he was called Trump.
Uncle Trump.
Uncle Trump!
Yeah.
Makes him sound very friendly. Well, she doesn't, I'll tell you.
I know, not even in the title of the book. What is it?
Too Much Is Never Enough. How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man by Mary L. Trump. So, we've obviously picked a book about him that is leaning towards not agreeing with him.
No, look, I'm fully aware of that. We know that when we read memoirs, that people, by and large, put their best selves forward, and we do take it with a pinch of salt a lot of the time. Well, at least I do. You tend to believe everything you're told.
I believe everything.
But the same way with this, because this is almost an anti-Trump book, I'm taking that with a pinch of salt as well. I get she's more invested. I get that it's her uncle. He's ruined her family as much as people think he's ruined the country. So I'm taking her story with a pinch of salt as well.
It's anti-Uncle Trump.
It's anti-Uncle Trump. Okay, let's do it.
A family memoir.
Donald Trump.
Well, yes, the Trumps.
The Trumps.
By the way, if anybody isn't aware who isn't British, Trump in Britain means fart.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
And it's just really worth pointing out. I'm sure most people know that by now, but I still hear fart, do you?
Yeah, of course, especially when you say when you say the Trumps, it sounds like a children's TV program because we had the Flumps and we had Trumpton.
Yeah, we did. So Trumpton is a town that Trump built.
Yes.
All right, we got name mocking out of the way. We usually get something in there.
No, but it's funny because Mary Trump says quite near the beginning of this book, when she was growing up, she was really always quite proud of her name.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have felt proud of it if you grew up in England.
No, you wouldn't.
Mary Fart.
Yeah. Anyway, right, we'll stop being childish. Right.
Well, why? Donald hasn't stopped being childish and hasn't done him any harm.
Yeah, that's so true. He has set the precedent.
Hey.
All right, so everything began with this woman called Mary, who was from Scotland, and she spoke Gaelic. She only learnt English as a second language, and she emigrated to America in 1930 because of the decimation on the Isle of Lewis of all the men. They were all killed in World War One.
No, they all were killed coming back, weren't they?
Yeah, a huge amount were killed.
The ship sank.
Yeah, and then the survivors, 200 survivors, were on the way back, and the ship sank like a mile from shore.
Oh, God, that's devastating.
And yeah, so at that point, you know, if you want to get married, you've kind of got to go somewhere.
Yeah, because there are no men left.
But it's good to point out that she emigrated to America. This is Mary, who then married Fred Trump, whose both parents were German, weren't they?
Donald's grandparents, yeah.
So originally, in 1885, Donald Trump's grandparents had come over from Germany. He'd made his money, also interesting, in the gold rush in the Yukon, and then opened a restaurant and a brothel. Then he'd gone back to Germany because they wanted to settle there, but he had dodged the draft, so they got kicked out of Germany, so they had to go back to America. And then he had Friedrich Trump. Do you know his full name is Friedrich Christ Trump?
Freddie Jesus Fart. It's so confusing. It's this American thing again where they all name each other after each other. So for clarity, Granddad Trump is Frederick, Dad Trump is Fred, and older brother Trump is called Freddie.
Yeah.
And there's also 3 Marys in this story, which is the woman who wrote this book, Mary L. Trump, the niece Trump, oldest daughter Trump, Mary Ann, and mother Trump, who is Mary as well.
Oh, yeah, so the Scottish woman, Mary, Donald's mother, had come over from Scotland. She'd become domestic help because she wasn't educated or anything. And then when she married Fred Trump, who was already building up an empire, she married into that, and then they had domestic help, but she had been a maid, basically.
So Mum come over from this tiny island in Scotland and has been working as a maid, And Dad is well on his way to being a confident, striding property magnate.
So this is what Donald comes from, a little bit of insecurity and a massive amount of narcissism. Though both those parts are completely part of him, aren't they? You know you're nothing and you think you're God, both.
And yeah, Mary says that one of the running things through his life is that he makes everyone believe that he is this amazing world-conquering man, but deep down he actually, paradoxically, doesn't believe it.
Yeah, because he isn't. Yeah, the story he always told was that his dad gave him 1 million and from that he built this empire. But the truth is that he constantly bailed him out. And the whole thing was Frederick, his dad, just building him up and pushing him forward and saying, you're great, you're amazing, be the front man for this. But actually he was running things. So yeah, he totally knew it wasn't him.
One thing that we've missed is that Fred Trump, Donald's dad, his dad actually died when he was 12 years old. And his mum helped him get started the building business. I mean, he showed a lot of aptitude for a young man, little 12-year-old Fred Trump, and he started building garages for people. And that's how he begun his property empire. And I think losing his dad at a young age, and then he met Mary and they started having a family and they had a son called Freddie, named after him, obviously. And the expectation is that little Freddie was going to be the heir apparent to the Trump dynasty, but it didn't quite work out that way.
It's good to point out that Freddie was actually the second child because they did have Mary first, but she doesn't count because she's a girl.
Oh my God, look at that. I forgot about Mary. Mary Ann.
Yeah, because they just talk the whole time about his first son, his first child, and they just totally ignore the girl. They didn't expect girls to do anything.
Well, you know what? I think this whole Trump empire would have been very different and, dare I say, more successful had they actually let the girls inherit it.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, because Mary Ann became a lawyer, didn't she?
Yeah.
That's the one that became a lawyer. Yeah.
The girls were completely dismissed in this family, weren't they?
They were.
Okay, let's just bring it up to speed. So Mary came from Scotland, met Fred, who was second-generation German, both American immigrants.
Yep.
They get married and they have a son called a daughter, Mary Ann, a son, Freddie. Then there's a couple years of a gap where they have Elizabeth. Then there's a few more years where they then have Donald and then Robert. So they have 5 children. Donald Trump is the second oldest son, but the 4th child of 5.
Yes, and Donald was born in 1946.
Mm-hmm.
Before Donald, that gap of a few years, there was some miscarriage trauma. So that by the time Donald was born, I think his mum was a bit broken.
Yeah, she was.
And she was just mentally missing, basically, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So he said she was never loving to him. He kind of missed the loving mum part.
Yeah, and I think, the dad was always at work as well.
And he's a narcissistic bully.
Yeah, and so he had no parental guidance or affection or anything.
Yeah.
Which, as we know, is never a good way to start life.
No, it's not a good start, no. So, I mean, the author's dad, Freddie, was born in 1938. And, yeah, he was meant to be the one who took over because he's named after his dad. He's the firstborn son. And all bets were on him. But he just didn't have the character for it. Basically, sounds like a nice person.
Yes.
He liked pottering about, he just did what he did. He didn't have a killer instinct. The way the dad raised them was bordering abuse, if not just plain abuse. He just bullied them to try to make examples. If you were weak, it was bad to be weak. He just laid into him all the time, and all it did for Freddie was break him. He got so bullied, so humiliated all the time. He just crumbled.
Yeah.
And Donald was coming along behind, watching this and going, this will not happen to me. So what he did was join in with the abuse and abused his older brother to get brownie points from his dad. So he kind of shut his heart down, He shut any feelings down. It says his dad, Frederick, prevented Donald from experiencing or expressing any emotions. It wasn't okay to express emotion. So he was just damaged.
I think that was probably standard back in the 1940s,
yeah,
1950s
maybe.
for young men and their sons. But a lot of sons did have their mums, and obviously Donald's mum is absent as well. So he's not getting it from mum or dad.
No, but I think this might have just been an extreme version.
Sure, yeah.
So if you imagine At some point in his life, right, the dad, Frederick, he had 27,000 apartments in New York City. He was making millions just from rent collection. It's an empire. And so he was trying to put his sons in charge. So the son, Freddie, he just hated it. It wasn't for him. It didn't suit him at all. He's basically a rent collector. He hated it.
Yeah, I do think one thing that people miss when it's like fathers and sons and stuff is just personality. And people are born with personalities and they have different aptitudes for different things. And I just think Freddie, the oldest son, like you say, was just not the right person to take over a property empire.
No.
But obviously the dad wanted him to, and he really forced it upon him, which I think just exacerbated the difference. And so Freddie became a real kicking boy, which, he's the oldest son. And then it must have been quite demeaning for him to then see his younger brother, much younger brother, actually start being held up as the heir apparent. And Donald is much better at this than you are. Donald's still a kid at this point. It must be another way to humiliate Freddie.
Yeah.
To say your little brother is much better at you than this. When actually there's no proof that the little brother's any good at it at all.
Exactly. He's really humiliated. So he actually learned to fly, didn't he? And bought a plane. Yeah, and then announced that he was leaving Trump Estates or whatever to actually become a pilot. And ironically, that's the sort of thing that the dad wanted his son to do, to stand up to him and make something of himself. But he hated it that he did it like that. He felt betrayed. He totally punished him for the rest of his life for that betrayal. So off he went to be a pilot, which was extremely glamorous at that time. You're into the 60s, aren't you now? Really, really cool. You were like a pop star, rock star. And Donald and their dad called him a glorified bus driver.
Right, yeah.
And that just knifed him in the heart, and he started drinking. And I do not like this. I do not want to read about a pilot who's drunk. I'm like, I'm on your side, but I can't. Please don't tell me about a drunk pilot. TWA had to let him go.
Yeah, he didn't even last a year as a commercial pilot.
A year as a drunk pilot, though, that's not cool. I hope they crack down a lot more on that now.
No, actually, yeah, of course they do. They have rigorous drug testing as well.
I really hope.
But do you think, in the 19s, did they even have drink driving for cars in the 1960s? Breath tests and stuff?
Probably not, actually.
No.
That's a good point.
There was probably a lot of drunk flying back then, but there weren't half as many planes in the air.
What? Doesn't make any difference. It's not like they crash into each other, is it?
No, but the likelihood of them crashing into each other in the 1960s, now, you can look in the sky and see 10 planes crisscrossing.
That's true, yeah, right.
You couldn't be drunk now. But back then you probably could have been a bit drunk, couldn't you? Hey, it didn't work out very well for Patrick Swayze, did it?
Oh, no, it didn't. Yeah, but he wasn't drunk, don't forget.
Oh, you believe everything.
Convince me.
So Freddie gives up drink driving in the sky.
Then he went back to his dad's business and worked for another 11 years.
Well, I mean, he went back reluctantly. He went back because he kind of had to get a job. He didn't go back to his dad because he wanted to work for Trump management.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, and of course, that's so demeaning again for the older son to have to go and ask for his job back, and then his much younger brother, who I think is 21 and fresh out of university, just gets promoted right over him.
Yeah.
And in a way, though, I think it says that the older brother didn't mind as much because he didn't go back to get the responsibility. He just went back for a job.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow, though.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, he definitely carried on drinking, of course.
Yeah.
And then his health was failing, and then he had a heart attack, and blah, 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 it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he died at 42 of alcoholism. So, I mean, the real message in this book is that his family killed him. They just drove him to it. Whether he should have taken responsibility for himself or it was their fault, in her mind it's their fault. And I think that's what's fueling her to write this book. Partly that, partly because she's an intelligent woman who sees the horrifying fact that her, pretty much insane family are taking over America and ruining it. But also, they killed her dad. Did you get that feeling? That she thinks that?
No, I think it's more complicated than that. I think she got nothing from the family. This is the end of the book, but her and her brother are totally written out of any form of the will. And I think, she needs to make some money at this point. So the obvious way for her to make some money is to write a book about her uncle, the most famous man on the planet.
Oh, you think money's motivating him?
Yeah, I do.
Not morals or revenge?
No, I think there is a sense, I think there's a sense of revenge. I think she feels like she has a moral duty because her thing is, this is what Donald did to my family. I don't want him to do it to the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. But I think there is she feels a public duty. I think she's very well placed, more than most people, to have this discussion and write this book. But of course, she makes a few $1 million out of it as well. Well, good luck to her. But I'm sure it's a motivating factor.
Yeah, could well be.
Do you know what this reminds me of a bit? Remember the Andre Agassi book where his dad, the firstborn, he was going to turn into like a worldwide tennis champion, and actually that didn't happen. And then
he destroyed him, actually.
Yeah. And then the next two children he tried to do again. By the time little Andre was born, like the fourth kid,
last chance.
And I think that's a similar thing as what's happened here. Like, Fred Trump had a couple of useless daughters who didn't count, and then a son who was useless. So he focused everything onto Donald. He said Donald is going to be the world champion. I mean, in all fairness, Andre Agassi became very good at tennis, whereas Donald is just bluffing
this is smoke and mirrors. Yeah. It's total smoke and mirrors. He's created an illusion, and he puppets it from behind the scenes. Donald's the puppet.
We should just quickly rewind to say that when Donald was a teenager, he obviously went to school and he got in lots of trouble. And at the age of 14, 15, they pulled him out and put him into a military academy to sort him out.
Yeah, because it was such an arrogant bully.
Like his
dad. Just like his dad, as he'd been trained to be.
And they said that his dad then, weirdly and kind of out of personality, would visit Donald every weekend at the military academy, so that he must have kind of felt a bit bad for doing that to his son, not least because he did actually lose his own dad at the age of 12.
That's true.
Of all of them, any of his children, the sons or the daughters, there does seem to be the one that he's chosen to be an actual father to is young Donald.
Yeah, he has.
So Donald is kind of the chosen one, for better or for worse.
He is the chosen one.
Because he's probably most like his dad, a sociopath.
Yes. Yeah, in 1964, Donald Trump went to Fordham University in the Bronx, and his sister Mary did all his homework for him. And then when he had to go in person to sit his SATs, his exams, because it was before photo ID, he paid a smart kid to go and sit them for him. So even his education is a big fat lie. Then he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. Anyway, he ended up working for the dad, building Trump Village. Got this land called Steeplechase, and it was a huge bit of really prime real estate. And he was going to build another big Trump Village. And he put Freddie in charge of it, which was impossible for him to succeed. And he knew it. And there was tons of public resistance to building on this land. And it totally failed. And he put all of that onto Freddie. That's one of the big things that made his health fail, because it totally disintegrated him. Plus, there's cold. They were living in the Trump apartments and they wouldn't fix the heating. So he was getting more and more ill. This is Freddie, the oldest brother. He went back to live with his parents and they stuck him in an attic where he actually died. And actually his death is really bad because Mary had been at school and nobody had even told her he was ill. He was really ill for 3 weeks leading up to his death of a heart attack, and nobody had bothered him. They sent him to hospital on his own. Nobody went with him. Donald went to the cinema and he died on his own.
There seems to be such a basic lack of parental responsibility. Forget about affection.
Yeah.
There's just no sense of parental anything here.
They just didn't seem that bothered. And I watched an interview with Trump where he was going, yeah, my brother died. He drank himself to death. It was just all he's doing. He did that to himself. It's just so cut off from it. They said he was emotionally cut off from it. Nobody talked about him again.
Yeah, after he died, and even when the mum and dad died, Freddie, the oldest son, was not mentioned in either of their obituaries. It's like he'd never existed.
Because he'd failed and he was weak.
Yeah.
I looked up sociopaths, the definition, and one of the definitions is a lack of remorse, a lack of empathy, lack of remorse, arrogance, violating rights of others, using charm or deceit to get what they want, acting impulsively, and not caring about other people's feelings. It's like, that is a description of Donald Trump and his father.
Yeah, that could be written on the Trump family crest or whatever.
Motto.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah, it's scary. Well, it's scary when they become president.
I tell you something, here you go. You know, like I said, the oldest lad, Freddie, died of alcoholism or whatever. I tell you what, he broke the family line in a way, because here we have his daughter, Mary, trained as a clinical psychologist and trying to put the Trump brand, what the Trumps have put into the world, she's trying to counteract it here. So actually, Freddie's legacy, even though the Trumps are not recognizing him, through his daughter, he lives on. And look, he created somebody with a more critical worldview who is saying, hang on a minute. So actually, he did succeed in this world in some way, didn't he, through his daughter?
He did, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm full of good points. So one thing that Dad Trump did, part of me, I admire him because he's a 12-year-old kid who lost his dad, and he started a property empire through building garages with his own hands.
Yeah, true.
But through doing that and gaining experience, what he was also really good at was making friends with like well-connected politicians, and then how to get favors from them, but also how to get the government funding for housing. So he would tap into things like the Federal Housing Administration, or the government handouts are to build new houses for people. And it's basically tax money from the public purse. But 80% of the building costs can be taken from the public purse. And that's your profits in your company. He became very good at funneling public money to kind of turn into his own personal fortune, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's something Donald Trump has become very good at. But actually, he's only been good at getting the money. The very interesting thing in this book is that actually how Dad Trump run a very successful empire, expanding and managing his money so well that sometimes he would go to a building site. If there was like a dropped nail on the floor, he'd pick it up and hand it back to the carpenter. This is a man who's on top of everything. And his business at this point was hugely successful, and he never acquired any debt.
Yeah, right. Very different from his son.
Yeah, he grew up through the Depression, you see, and I think you have a very different idea of money, whereas
That's true.
Donald Trump was born into huge wealth.
Yeah, and he was sort of pushed forward as being a playboy, and his dad was really keen to make that image strong. Like, he'd hire him a Cadillac and get him a driver and, you know, get him the best clothes and shower him with obvious shows of wealth so that he could make his image as a playboy about town, a rich, successful businessman, which he wasn't. And his dad wanted Trump to have that face. Therefore, he was squandering it and throwing it around. His dad's encouraging it. So that's very different from his dad. He was just a plain businessman. But what he ended up doing was just spending way beyond his means. He's in billions of debt.
It's absurd that that's even possible.
It's crazy. The most despicable thing to me, as a worker person speaking for the workers, is that they hired, particularly Donald, hired huge amounts of people building these 3 giant casinos in Atlanta and never paid them. I don't know if he filed for bankruptcy a couple of times, did he?
Oh, he's forever bankrupt, isn't he?
Therefore, putting out of business so many smaller businesses, so many suppliers and people who never got paid. Yeah, so there's no moral compass at all.
Well, he's a sociopath.
Pretty despicable.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
And you know what else? In 1973, the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division sued father and son for violating law because they refused to rent any properties to black people. I mean, there you go. Does anyone think they're racist? There it is, right there. And they loved it. They got loads of publicity. Yeah, they loved it.
But, you know, they turned that into a positive. Donald was about 27 at this point, and it was the first time he made the front page of the paper. So they saw that as a personal win for the brand of Trump. And because of that, because the media started talking about him, because of this terrible case, which, by the way, they settled out of court because they knew they were onto a loser, that didn't matter to them. They ran with the publicity. All of a sudden, New York and the world are waking up to knowing who Donald Trump is.
Yeah.
And they see it as a very positive step in the establishing of Donald Trump being the next Trump generation. And through the 70s and into the 80s, well, we know that the boom happened and the publicity. You need a face for people to see around town, spending lavishly, driving in limousines and living in the highest tower block in the city. And that's how they took Trump management into the 1980s, is basically through Donald Trump being the face of it all.
And the face of racist America.
Well, that continues to this day.
Exactly. That was just the beginning. 50 years later, he's making a bid for presidency on the back of being racist, because it taps into a large percent of the voters' feelings that they're not allowed to say in this politically correct time.
Yeah.
But he says it. And so all the people who are secretly hiding their racist feelings or sexist feelings, they rise up and go, yes, you're my man. I mean, one of the reasons he's tried to be president is massive popular support. People have begged him to become president, because they want him to lead them, because he's the only one who dares to say the despicable things that a lot of people were thinking.
You know, there's a very interesting sentence in this book is where Mary says that his whole presidential campaign, his whole reason for being is based on division. Us and them, build the wall, keep them out. It is built on racism. And she says that's all he's known, because his dad created that division between him and his older brother, and he played them off against each other. Donald knows how to thrive when he divides.
Yeah.
To be honest, most modern politics, I mean, most politics of all time has worked on division.
That is true.
If only we could all see that.
That is true.
So, you know, that works very well for him. He understands division and he knows how to accentuate it.
Yeah.
And he knows that it's a basic thing that many people respond to.
Yeah, it's true.
And unfortunately, we just do. We're wired to react to division. And he's harnessed it and used it in a very effective way, because when you look at everything else he says, it just blows my mind that anybody would vote for him, but they do.
Shocking.
You know, the thing that I think a lot of the racists who vote for Trump miss is that Donald Trump doesn't give one shoot about black lives, like black lives don't matter to him. But do you know what? Neither do racist lives matter to him.
Not at all.
Yeah, they just don't.
Not to any lives. No, nobody matters to him except him and his family, his close family.
And if only somebody could make Trump supporters realise that. But unfortunately, do you know what? His main opposition is a woman who isn't white at the moment, and they're not going to listen to her either.
No, they're not. But you're right, he just doesn't care about them. He probably mocks them. In fact, I think he got caught on with his mic on a couple of times. He just thinks they're stupid.
Yeah, well, everybody thinks they're stupid. I don't want to fall into the trap of calling them stupid, because I don't think that actually they are. But when you consider that so many of those hard-working people give their hard-earned money to a literal billionaire to fund his campaign, I mean, it's kind of hard not to call them stupid. But, I watched this documentary about him 20 years ago, about his casinos. And, you know, there used to be people who used to sit at those machines all day, every day, older people, retired people. And I remember he came to do a meet and greet, and they interviewed the people in the line, and they said to this woman, how much do you think you've spent here over the years? And she said, close to $1 million.
Oh, my God.
I remember thinking, wow. You know, she's feeding those machines, but she's like feeding the Trump machine, like these people who fund his campaign. I mean, he's just a massive grifter. I mean, it's quite something, I have to say. Take all of the politics away from it. He's almost the epitome of the American dream. Your immigrant dad can come over and start a business empire by building garages, and 80 years later your son is the president.
Missing a generation, because his dad could have been president. He would have at least earned it, even if he was a terrible man. But his son didn't work for it. I know you see these documentaries and he looks like he's working. But Mary, this author, she said her uncle got her to write his book for him. So then she moved into the Trump offices and was in this office working, couldn't get him to do an interview at all. She kept pestering him. In the end, she sat in his office for a while. And every time he got a call, he put it on speaker, and it was just people talking about golfing or women or parties. She said she eventually came off the job, and she still doesn't know what he actually does.
What he actually does.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I bet that is exactly how he runs his presidency.
Yeah.
I bet he's just on the phone a lot. Oh, he certainly plays golf a lot. But I bet that it's just him telling other people what to do. Or not even that, it's other people doing the job and then telling him what they've done. I don't believe he runs the country. I don't.
No, she says, I don't know how he's working at being president unless playing golf, eating burgers and watching TV and insulting people via Twitter counts as work.
Yes.
I've heard this before, though. I don't know what he actually does. I think he's just the front. He's same as he was for his dad. He's just the front.
Listen, I'm under no illusions these days because the whole thing is so absurd. And I think there's a really interesting bit in this book and I think it explains why he's president. He's very useful to a lot of people being president.
Yes.
And when you go back and see how his dad elevated Donald to be the front person of the company, the face of the Trump brand. And Donald would make so many rotten decisions, but his dad was bigging him up so much. So his dad had lots of connections in the building world, and he had lots of connections in politics and lots of connections with the banks, financial people, all bona fide because his dad was a hard worker and built an actual empire. Okay, he'd try and get out of paying his taxes and stuff, as I think a lot of people on those levels did, but he was actually a very hard worker who knew what he was doing. Now, because his dad was this good, he had a lot of trust in a lot of people. And then when he started introducing his younger son, Donald, people put the same amount of trust into him. But they soon found out after these people had invested in Donald as well, they kind of found out that Donald was not half as good as his dad. His dad was just saying he was. Like Freddie wasn't as good as his dad. Donald wasn't as good as his dad was an exceptional businessman. Unfortunately, he didn't have any sons that could take over.
No, that's right. But Donald was happy to play the part.
Exactly, because he liked being the playboy face of the Trump brand.
Yes. He could do that. That's all he could do.
But the interesting thing to me is how the banks, once they invested in Donald, they invested so heavily, they also had to keep up with the public pretense of saying this man is an amazing businessman, hoping that it would stick and his next venture would be successful so the banks could get their money back. And they kept digging a bigger and bigger hole. Basically, Donald went from disaster to disaster.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
But he had the banks and his dad and now the media saying what a brilliant businessman he was. Well, actually, he's not a brilliant businessman at all. It's absurd.
It's absolute epic failure.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Eh?
I mean, like when he'd got 3 massive casinos in Atlanta, which were taking profit from each other. They were in competition with themselves.
I mean, who would open up 3 casinos so close to each other? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Then he couldn't make his repayments, and suddenly somebody had come in and bought £3 million worth of chips, but then didn't bet with them.
That was his dad.
Yeah, and it turns out it was his dad through someone else. Yeah, and I think he'd got done for that. Well, someone tried to do him for that. But yeah, so his dad's just bailing him out, trying to do it secretly. It's embarrassing. Not 5 minutes later, he's on The Apprentice as if he's this amazing businessman. And because it's TV, everyone thinks TV is true. It must be reality because it's reality TV. And then that just hones this image, which is actually a world's biggest failure as a businessman. And now next thing is the president. Insane.
The whole thing is insane.
It's not quite the next thing. It took a really long time. He was only I think he was 70 by the time he became president.
You know, the banks eventually,
something like that.
The banks eventually did say to him, "You're in so much debt, we're going to stop lending you money." But they still had to put him on a retainer of about $500,000 a month.
Yeah.
So he could maintain his lifestyle.
$500,000 a month.
So he still had the outward appearance of being a very successful man, because that's what you need to survive in business. You need to make people believe you're successful.
That's right.
So the banks had a hope of getting their money back.
Yeah.
Do you know what? You know, we've just read the Richard Branson autobiography.
Yes.
A lot of business is just veneer and bullshit. Do you remember when he had that big war with British Airways, which almost bankrupted Virgin because they had to spend so much money legally?
Yes.
And then at one point, the press saying, "Oh, Virgin is over with, it's done, they've got no money left." He then decided to sign Janet Jackson for $25 million.
Yes, and it was to make the show of it, so people believed in the brand again.
There you go. So all of a sudden it's in the papers. Janet Jackson's just got $25 million from Richard Branson. Actually, he didn't have $25 million. And once the deal was negotiated, he then had to find it. But the fact of the matter is, back in the newspapers, it said that they just spent $25 million on Janet Jackson. Therefore, Virgin is not over and done with. They're a thriving business. The Trumps would play this game with the media.
I did think about that when I was reading this, but they're just so much more clever about it. Or was Branson just lucky? Because that does it. You have to overextend to get there in the end. Although his dad never did, so you don't necessarily have to.
I think maybe like in the 80s, the era of excess happened. And so, for example, Donald Trump would buy a $29 million super yacht and it would be on the front page of the paper. This is when he was on the retainer from the bank because he lost so much of their money. But he was still making these massive purchases. I mean, how?
Just debt.
But that would be on the front page of the newspaper. So people just thought he was hugely successful.
Yeah.
God, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I know.
Most of us are here scraping a living in the cost of living crisis, where there are these people at the other end of the scale who are spending money they don't have, but somehow making it work.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
In the meantime, he got married to Ivana Trump, who was very glamorous.
Oh, yes.
So he married Ivana, who was Czech. I'd just like to say that he wants to put up walls and stop immigration. His grandparents were German. His mother was Scottish. Both his wives that lasted were from Czech or Yugoslavia, Slovenia. It's astounding to me that this man, who's surrounded by foreign people, as it were, is so against immigration. Even that really doesn't make any sense.
It kind of makes you wonder if he's not actually against immigration at all. He just knows it's a very good divisive tool to win an election.
Quite possibly true.
Then the thing that blows my mind is that the people who vote for him and his immigration laws can see in plain sight that he's married an immigrant, but they don't seem to put two and two together.
I know.
Yeah, it blows my mind.
It's completely astounding. Anyway, very, very glamorous. He went out with models and celebrities. He had this whole showbiz life that was obviously funded and encouraged, but it sort of worked. And he was 6'1". People said he was handsome, or they cannot see it.
Right, here's the thing about that. I cannot see it, but there's a photo in the book where they're young, and I think Donald's probably 18, 19, and he's tall and he's athletic, and actually, hate to say it myself, he's actually quite handsome.
Oh.
But it surprised me. He was a nice-looking young man.
But he's not talking. The second he starts talking and making O shapes with his mouth, he becomes completely ridiculous. Because that is how he talks. It's so pretentious. So if he's not talking, but no, I'm still not having it. I can't see it. I refuse to see it. I can't see it. But Ivana then became his business partner, and she was helping run the casino in Atlanta. And they were in the newspapers all the time. Whenever you see pictures of Studio 54, annoyingly, Trump's often there. He was in films. He was guest starring in this and that, guest cameos. He was everywhere. He loved the media. He did interviews all the time. He loved being famous. Then when that marriage fell apart after I think they had 3 kids or so, because he had an affair with some model, then he was forced to marry her because she was pregnant. Then eventually he gets together with Melania. So all of that has just completely fueled, and all the elaborate weddings, all in the media and on telly.
Yeah, it's good for the brand.
All that's just fueled his fame. And then The Apprentice has just nailed it. And then you're voting for a celebrity to be your president.
Well, the thing with The Apprentice is, now we've read this in a couple of other people's books in terms of fame. You can be a politician, you can be on the front page of the paper, you can be a pop star and be number 1 in the charts, you can be a film star and be number 1 at the box office. It's not until you get onto a TV in people's front rooms.
And you reach everyone.
Everyone knows who you are. Your fame grows exponentially, and people think they know you and they like you.
Yeah.
And it's not just like the kids who are into the pop charts. It's old ladies. It's young kids. It's literally everyone once you're on the TV.
Yeah.
And it was so important for his brand. And I think the thing that clinched the presidency for him.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I have a real theory about how everybody votes for Trump.
And I think it has a lot to do with him not being very presidential.
Yeah.
And I think this applies to the UK, certainly, and other countries. I think half the population think that politics isn't for them. I think they feel excluded.
Yeah.
I think that politicians speak in language that a lot of people don't relate to and a lot of people can't understand. And when you get somebody off the TV,
it's very familiar. And if they talk in simple language, people can understand everything you say. It almost doesn't matter what you're saying. The fact is, there's finally a politician that you can look at and relate to. So you feel a bit included.
I think you're right. And he doesn't really make any pretense to have any policies or care about how he's doing it. He just wants to be president. And he doesn't need to say anything more than that.
Yeah, and I think when people vote for Trump, it's almost an anti-politics vote.
Politics is a foreign land for a lot of people. It's like if you don't understand the language, it's like Shakespeare. It's impenetrable. And then finally somebody comes along who, you relate to and you think, great, this guy's in there. He's shaking this politics thing up. He's sticking it to everyone. I'm on his side. It's a way of them getting back at the establishment that they feel so hard done by, and yet they've never felt a part of it. And now they feel a part of it because of him. I kind of get it. It's actually very clever if it's intentional. It is intentional. Of course it's intentional.
Oh, do you know what? I actually think that Trump's success is quite a British thing, because the Americans don't have class in the same way that the UK have class.
Well, they say they don't, but I think they do.
I think through families like the
It's
Trumps,
different, but yeah.
You know how like someone like Boris Johnson can become Prime Minister in England. He could have failed at every single job in his life, but somehow people fail upwards.
Yes.
And it's because of connections. They went to the right school.
Yes.
They know aristocracy. They know people in the royal family. They know people in the House of Lords. Those boys that went to those schools who are similarly unhinged through parental distance.
Yes, they are. They are.
But it's all the handshakes and the backslapping. Yeah. And so they can be really terrible as mayor of London, but you can fail upwards and become prime minister. I think there's a bit of a parallel between Donald Trump. They were very well connected with important people, the Trumps. And I think he can completely fail. And look, he's become president. It's just, it wouldn't happen to many people. Certainly wouldn't happen to a woman. Certainly wouldn't happen to anybody who wasn't white.
Yeah, it's true. It's all the stuff that she says at the very beginning of the book about the antisocial personality disorder. She describes it from her psychology education. Antisocial personality, a chronic criminality, arrogance, a dependent personality because he's never been loved. So he's actually massively insecure, an inability to make decisions or take responsibility, a discomfort of being left alone, undiagnosed learning disabilities, he can't process information, and he drinks 12 Diet Cokes a day. So she says he's got a caffeine-induced sleep disorder and he's a terrible diet, he doesn't exercise. I mean, that's...
To think that man had his finger on the war button for 4 years and he might quite likely get it again.
Oh my God.
It's terrifying. And if it doesn't terrify you, you're not actually considering that scenario.
Yeah, I know. Oh, all I hope is that he is still a puppet more than you actually have power. Because I thought Obama would do more, because I thought he wanted to. I know a lot of stuff he tried to change, he couldn't, because you're up against so many hurdles. You can't just change stuff. You know, there's a whole constitution to get passed. I don't know exactly what I'm saying, but you know what I mean? So I don't think you're in ultimate power.
You're not.
No,
you're
thank
not.
God.
And I think there are people behind the scenes who are worse than Trump. I think he's the public face of...
Yeah, they're bound to be.
The thing about Trump as president is, you know how all of the banks invested all that money in him? So they couldn't publicly say he's a failure. They had to go along with the pretense in the hope that one day they would get their money back. I feel that's what's happening now with the presidency. I think the Republican Party kind of know Trump is this big embarrassment, but I also think they know that he's the most popular person they've got. And if they've got any hope of regaining power, they need him at the front.
Yeah.
And, oh, God.
That's right.
This whole thing as well about Joe Biden being too old, they really played on that a lot. And look, now Joe Biden stepped down. Well, Donald Trump's only like 2 years younger than him.
Yeah, I know.
So now he should be seen as being really old himself now, but he's just not.
Yeah, I know.
The whole thing is bizarre to me.
But listen, to me, the most dangerous thing about him is that him being president validates his terrible opinions. So it means it's okay to be racist. It's okay to be misogynist. It's okay to say this shithole country, or, it's okay to talk like that. It's okay to think like that because the president does. That is just the most depressing disintegration of everything good about America. Oh, it's so sad. I love America. You do too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. But I don't think we're so dissimilar in the UK, to be honest. I think we've...
no, well, we've got our own problems. Yeah, totally. But we're not talking about them right now.
Yeah, I know. The only thing about the racist rhetoric and stuff is at least it keeps it in the open. We know racism exists.
No, that's true. Hiding it could be just as dangerous. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, we know, the racists are showing themselves, so we know where we are with them.
Yeah, I suppose so.
The saddest thing of all is I wish we could make the Trump voters realise they have got way more in common with a person who has different skin colour than they do with Donald Trump and his family.
Yes.
And that is something that none of them realise. They honestly think that Trump is
one
on
of
their
them,
side.
and
Actually,
he is not.
We all need to realise, and I think about this in England as well, they ruled us by dividing us. And the immigration thing is such a big tool. You know what? The average working class British person has way more in common with an immigrant than they do with anybody in that Conservative government. And it's just a very clever trick that the media and the politicians use to divide us. And I don't know how we make people realise that we're more or less the same. And it's the people in power who are very different. But I don't think we're going to do it with this podcast.
No, I definitely just declare myself massively unqualified to talk about this on a podcast. Nevertheless, we've read a book and we're discussing it.
Yeah, that's what we do. But I was massively unqualified to talk about tennis, but I did for an hour.
Yeah, me too. Totally true. I know, it's just that it's a dangerous subject, politics, isn't it?
It is, definitely. But I tell you who I think it's most dangerous for, the people who are voting for Trump. Because I don't think a vote for Trump is a vote for Trump. Because do you think he's honestly going to be here in 4 years' time? He's getting old. He's showing signs of becoming increasingly infirm. He's cognitively dissembling in front of our very eyes. You know, we've already talked in this episode about the billionaire Republicans pulling the strings. Well, they'll have Trump where they want him.
Well, that's it. I mean, they only have to wheel them out. It's just like the Pope. You just stick him in a vehicle and wheel them out. And they wave a little bit, and then everyone else gets on with running the country and doing exactly what they really want to do.
Do you think they're just going to keep Trump in the back room and feed him ice cream and every so often just wheel him out like they do with the Pope?
Ice cream and burgers.
Just to create the illusion he's actually in charge.
Yeah.
They'll give him a Trump mobile.
Yeah. Propelled by farts.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Thrift Shop Biography. We love making this podcast and we're absolutely thrilled that so many of you are already listening. You could really help us out by leaving us a review somewhere, wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you could share us, tell your friends about us, or drop some links on social media. We have a Facebook page called Thrift Shop Biography, so make sure you come over there to hear about the episodes first and what else we're up to. Okay, see you next week. And if you're new here, there are loads more episodes now to go and listen in the back catalogue, so make sure you go and enjoy them. Okay, thank you very much.